So one of the biggest question marks in the Mets lineup going into 2024 is going to be, and it will continue to be, third base, with loads of internal and external options to address the position. As for those internal options, the Mets have been very cautious with the development of Brett Baty, Ronnie Mauricio, and Mark Vientos, seeing shades of promise throughout last season. Brett Baty was the Mets' first-round pick in 2019 and has struggled so far in his major league career offensively and defensively. Ronnie Mauricio was called up this year in September, played a bit of second base and third base in the majors. Mark Vientos played a combination of first base, third base, and designated hitter throughout the year, displaying a good amount of his raw power at the plate. Now, among these three young players, the Mets also have some external options in free agency, headlined by Blue Jays third baseman Matt Chapman, along with Jeimer Candelario, Gio Urshela, and also of veterans like Evan Longoria. Since the captain David Wright retired at the end of 2018, the Mets have had 17 players make a start at third base, where Mets third basemen are 25th in Fangraphs wins above replacement per the position.
I'm gonna quote something Frank said earlier in the pod. There are so many other holes to fill in this team. Stay internally. And obviously, would Matt Chapman be nice? Yeah, but what Matt Chapman we getting? We getting the one in April or the one the other 7 months of the year they didn't do dick? So, and this is the problem with Matt Chapman. And it's no fault of his own. It's not his fault. In the free agent class, it is Shohei Ohtani, a huge gap, and then Matt Chapman is the best offensive target left. Meaning, he's going to be overpaid. And how do you get in trouble? Overpaying mediocre to above average players superstar money. He's going to get 6, 7, 8 years of probably anywhere from 17 to 24 million per season. Would I be mad if Matt Chapman's playing third base for the Mets on opening day? No. Would I love it? Yeah. He's hitting the market kind of at the perfect opportunity, not on the best season, because if again the season was just April, he'd be getting like $50 million a year. He's still one, if not the best, a top 3 best defensive player in baseball, especially at his position. The other options, Jeimer Candelario, a guy who had a very good season, don't get me wrong. Some flukiness to it. You know, he obviously had a great opportunity with the Nationals at the beginning of the year, had played every single day, gets traded to the Cubs. And then kind of what I think, again, I think the kids need to be Ronnie, Brett, just battle out because there's so many other holes in this roster that you need to spend money on. Deep pitching, starting, rotation, DH, corner outfielders. Then there's third base. You've got enough guys from the guys who've seen the big leagues. You've got McNeil, you've got Brett, you've got Ventos, you've got Ronnie. Hell, even Jet could be in that conversation at some point this year. You've got plenty of guys internally. One of them's got to grab the job by the balls. Guys for one spot. Somebody has to grab that job by the balls so you can take the other assets, the value, the money you have, which, again, we have the more money than Jesus, but that doesn't mean every single position has to have a top 10 highest paid guy in the sport. If you look at next year's trade candidacy, we thought third base is one of the most loaded positions in baseball. That's kind of fallen off because look at this year's class. Obviously, Chapman and Jeimer. And then you can go with your vets, Longo, Turner, whatever. Bregman's next year. I don't see Bregman leaving. Then the next guy would be Eugenio Suarez. Best free agents in the next 4 years. So there's no guy is going to be on the market. So if maybe Seattle, which again I've said it's my second favorite team, and I kind of have a feel for what DePoto does, I wouldn't be surprised if he moved the money for Suarez to go out and address other needs. So could that be a fit? I yelled for it 2 years ago, and everyone called me a nut job, and look what happened. So maybe you call Jerry and try to persuade something there, but it kind of has to stay internally because either you're going to overpay by an ungodly amount or you're going to, again, go use assets that you could be using for pitching. So it just makes sense. You've got too many guys internally. Someone has to take the job and run with it.
I'm in agreement in the sake of you have a much better chance of Ronnie Mauricio being your third baseman and being a productive, effective player for you, a positive player on the field, compared to if you went in-house for starting pitcher. If you try to use some of your guys from inside to be one of your starters, not going to get it done. And the same goes for the outfield. I feel like that is, of all the holes that the Mets have, the one that's easiest for them to solve, like you said, is third base. So, again, I just think that if third base was the only position left, then maybe you could take a chance on Chapman. But with all the other things that still need to be done, I feel like I I still want to see Ron Mauricio get a fair chance, just in general. I mean, whether it's third base, whether it, like we said, it's DH, are you going to trade him? I mean, they still have got to decide what they're going to do with this guy because, again, he's not going to play shortstop. I mean, it's something that, in the minor leagues, they tried all these different positions with him. I think he profiles more as a third baseman than he does a second baseman, that kind of frame. So I'd be much more willing to try him out there and see what happens. I think that, again, offensively at their best, Ronnie Mauricio fits his lineup more than Brett Beatty does as far as their strengths and weaknesses. So to me, I just think there's more value in Mauricio. And he's a guy I really want to see what he can do, and I want him to play.
You have 3 general options of guys we've seen play third base before who are young, they're controllable in Beatty, Mauricio, and Vientos. I need the Mets to do something at this third base position that doesn't involve them just pushing Luis Guillorme in spring training and being a possible competing for, Luis Guillorme is going to take your job if you don't step this up. Because if the Mets had a bunch of third base options, and obviously all 3 of these guys are not going to be in the lineup at third base. You can't have 3 third basemen in one lineup. I think that they need to add somebody this offseason who, at their best, would start for you, and they could also come off the bench. And that could be somebody that you bring in on a 1-year deal that could possibly, I know you just said Evan Longoria, but I think Gio Urshela is a better possibility.
He's tried. Again, another one of these fluke guys. Went to the Yankees, had one good fluke year in Baby Park. Would I hate it? No, but
again, he pushes a guy like Brett Beatty.
That is
true. He
true.
pushes a guy like Ronnie Mauricio. Like, that's the thing. They need to bring in somebody, but it also can't be someone who, at their worst, who's Evan Longoria, who's 39 years old or 38 years old, he ain't going to do anything. It needs to be somebody with actual upside. Gio Urshela, what is it, 32? Like, at your best, like, you could get 15 20 home runs from him as a third baseman at his best. But what I'm saying is that you need somebody in there to push one of these young guys, because Luis Guillorme ain't going to do that. Like, Luis Guillorme, if they keep him next year, like, if he comes back, which I hope not, he's not going to be the one, I'm catching bats in spring training, I'm coming for your job, right? It's not going to be like that. They need a veteran there, right, who is better than Eduardo Escobar to push somebody, right? And I think that Gio Urshela would be a good piece to that. Obviously, I would not go after Matt Chapman at this point, to be honest. With all the uncertainty we have in the outfield right now, like, I think that that's what you have to address in free agency the best. But they do need to bring in somebody in that infield who is, whether it's a veteran or has somewhat of upside, could bring in a 1-year prove-it deal, could decide the future, one of the prospects that we have here. Now, I don't think Mark Vientos is in the running for third base. I don't want to see him at third base, but I really want to see somehow them try to establish something at third base of whether someone's going to take the job or run with it, or we're going to have to bring in a veteran to take that and be a possible, part-time player behind them. Because, Ronnie Mauricio, we still haven't seen much from him, and that's not really much to his fault. But Brett Beatty, I know sure as hell he ain't my third baseman on opening day. I know sure as hell I would not be comfortable with that because he was god-awful. So they need somebody there who still has a lot left in the tank. I understand that Gio Urshela is coming off of some injuries, coming off of this or that, but if there is somebody that can come in there who also wants a starting job as well, that they could sign on a 1-year prove-it deal, Gio Urshela could be one of those guys you could bring in. Yammer Candelario, I think that he wants a guaranteed starting job, personally. I would not go that direction. But I would go internally for third base because, again, I can't deal with the plugging in of prospects when they haven't proven anything at the major league level when you're trying to be a competitive team. It just cannot happen. I understand you have the upside of all these guys, but none of them have taken the job and run with it. The only prospect that has taken the job and run with it is Francisco Alvarez. That is your catcher on opening day. As for Beatty, Mauricio, and Vientos, they still have yet to prove anything. Even though I like one of them more than the other, they still need to bring in somebody who could be a starting caliber player to possibly push them out and push them to that next limit, because they need Just they need something at that third base position in order to try and bring out the best in some of these young players. And it's a 1-year deal. I would not be opposed to that. At one point, you need to get somebody who does have something left in the tank, who has something to prove. And I think that Gio Urshela is one of those types of players. Matt Chapman would be somebody that if you have an actual hole, you don't have any internal op, you don't have anything. Like you have currently, if your starting third baseman on the depth chart was Luis Guillorme right now, that's when you go after Matt Chapman. But they have 3 prospects who could possibly play third base. And, but I would love to still bring in somebody who, like Gio Urshela, who could come off the bench, who also could start batting 8th, batting 9th in this lineup at his best, right? So I don't know. I think that this is a position that is going to be a very pivotal point. It's been for a while, but obviously with the younger guys coming to the major league level, it's going to be a little bit more of a deciding factor of who's got it and who is going to be a future of this. Who's going to be a future piece of this team? I mean, we talked about Ronnie Mauricio for a long time, and we've talked about Brett Beatty for a long time. He's been hyped up so unnecessarily. I don't want to see them rely on the prospects to get the job done. I want to see them see something from the external market in case you don't see these young players take the next step in their career.